My fiance's lawyer accidentally sent me the prenup he was hiding, so I sent it back signed with a few changes. I was supposed to be planning centerpieces when the email came through. Subject line, prenuptial agreement, revised draft, confidential. The sender was Mitchell and Associates, where Trevor's college roommate Brendan worked. I opened it. The document was 47 pages long. I'm a paralegal, so I know what these things look like. This wasn't a standard prenup. This was a hostage negotiation disguised as a marriage contract. Section 4.2 stated I'd waive all rights to his family's vacation properties. Section 7.1 required I sign over any inheritance from my parents into a trust he controlled. Section 12 was my favorite. In the event of divorce, I'd receive $50,000 per year of marriage, capped at 5 years. Trevor made $340,000 a year. His trust fund was worth $4.2 million. I'd been with him for 6 years, supported him through his father's death, helped launch his consulting firm, and spent every Sunday having brunch with his mother, who compared me to his ex constantly. The email had a note at the bottom. Trevor, here's draft 3 with your requested updates. Notice we strengthened the infidelity clause. Let me know if you want the settlement cap lower. Brendan. I sat there for 20 minutes. Then I opened the document and started making edits. I deleted Section 7.1 entirely. Added Section 7.2 stating any inheritance I received remained solely mine. Changed Section 4.2 to grant me equal access to all properties. Rewrote Section 12. In the event of divorce due to his infidelity, I'd receive 40% of all assets acquired during marriage plus $200,000. Then I added Section 18. Both parties agreed to complete transparency regarding all legal documents. Failure to disclose constitutes grounds for contract nullification and triggers infidelity clause penalties. I saved it. Signed it electronically. Sent it back to Brendan with a note. Looks good. A few small changes for Trevor's review. Then I went back to my centerpieces. Trevor came home with Thai food and a guilty smile. How was your day? Great. Got so much wedding planning done. He relaxed visibly. 3 days later, his mother called. Darling, we need to talk about signing some paperwork before the wedding. Oh, the prenup? I already signed it. Brendan sent it over. Silence. What? Yeah, I made a few tiny changes, but nothing major. What kind of changes? Just additions about transparency and equal property rights. And I adjusted the settlement terms. The line went dead. That evening, Trevor burst through the door, his face purple. What the hell did you do? I signed the prenup. Isn't that what you wanted? You changed it. You were hiding it from me. For how long were you planning to spring a 47-page document on me right before the wedding? His jaw clenched. Those terms were reasonable. Then my changes should be reasonable too. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling Brendan. This isn't legally binding. Actually, I can change it before signing. That's how contracts work. You can accept my terms or we cannot get married. The look on his face told me everything. This wasn't about protecting assets. This was about control. My mother will never agree to this. Good thing you're marrying me and not your mother. He left. Didn't come back that night. The next morning, I woke up to 47 missed calls. Brendan had informed Trevor that my version was valid since I'd signed first. He could sign my version, negotiate, or walk away. His mother showed up at my office at noon, threw a folder on my desk. Inside was the original prenup with a note. Sign this or the wedding is off. Vivian. I picked up my red pen, wrote across the front, counteroffer stands, slid it back. Tell Trevor he has 48 hours to decide who he's really marrying. She stormed out. That was 4 days ago. This morning, I got an email from a lawyer I'd never heard of. Subject line, regarding your employment at Morrison & Associates. I opened it. My hands started shaking. The letter informed me I was being terminated effective immediately. Breach of confidentiality. Accessing privileged client documents without authorization. Potential criminal charges pending. My supervisor wanted to see me in his office within the hour. I sat frozen in my kitchen, coffee going cold in my hand. This couldn't be happening. I'd worked at Morrison & Associates for 4 years. Built my reputation, earned my paralegal certification. Now Trevor's family was destroying everything I'd worked for because I wouldn't roll over and play dead. My phone buzzed. Trevor's number. I almost didn't answer. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? His voice was ice. My mother has connections all over this city. You humiliated our family. I stood up for myself. That's not humiliation. You accessed a confidential legal document that wasn't intended for you. Your lawyer sent it to me by mistake. I didn't hack anything. Doesn't matter. We have 3 partners at Morrison who owe my mother favors. Your career is over. He hung up before I could respond. I drove to the office in a daze. My badge wouldn't work at the security turnstile. The guard who'd smiled at me every morning for 4 years looked at his screen and shook his head. Sorry, miss. You're flagged. I need you to leave the premises. I just need to get my things. Already boxed up. HR will mail them. I stood there in the lobby while other employees walked past, pretending not to see me. Rachel from contracts wouldn't meet my eyes. David from litigation actually crossed to the other side of the hall. 30 minutes ago, these were my colleagues. My friends. Now I was radioactive. My supervisor, Gerald, appeared with security. He didn't even try to soften it. Accessing privileged documents. Violation of client confidentiality. Misuse of company resources. You're lucky we're not pressing charges. The document was sent to my personal email address by a lawyer who thought he was sending it to his client. You exploited that error for personal gain. Personal gain? I was the intended subject of the prenup. Not my concern. Legal has advised termination and potential criminal referral. You have 72 hours to retain counsel if you want to contest this. They walked me out. Actually walked me out like I'd stolen office supplies. I sat in my car for an hour watching people come and go through those glass doors. 4 years of my career, references, professional reputation, gone because I wouldn't let Trevor's family bully me. My phone kept buzzing. Unknown numbers. I finally answered one. Is this the paralegal who messed with the Whitmore prenup? A woman's voice, sharp and amused. I'm Julia Chen, family law attorney. I've been hearing about you all morning. The legal community is tiny, and Trevor's mother made the mistake of bragging about destroying your career. I'd like to meet. I drove to her office in a neighborhood I couldn't usually afford. Julia was maybe 45, wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly rent. She slid a business card across her desk. I'm going to be direct. What Vivian Whitmore is doing is illegal. Interfering with your employment, threatening criminal charges over a document that was legitimately sent to you. That's retaliation and potentially blackmail. They're saying I accessed privileged information. You received an email. You're also the subject of the document. You had every right to review it and propose modifications. She leaned forward. Here's what I think happened. Trevor wanted to trap you with an unconscionable prenup right before the wedding when you'd feel pressured to sign. The lawyer accidentally sent it early. You called their bluff. Now they're trying to scare you into compliance. It's working. Good. Let them think that. She opened a folder. I want you to file a lawsuit. Wrongful termination, retaliation, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. We'll add Trevor and his mother as defendants along with Morrison and Associates. My stomach dropped. I can't afford to sue them. They have unlimited resources. I'll take it on contingency. 1/3 of whatever we win, and we will win because they've made critical mistakes. She showed me printouts, text messages between Vivian and one of the Morrison partners, emails discussing my termination before it happened, phone records proving they'd coordinated the whole thing. Trevor's mother is so confident in her power that she didn't bother covering her tracks. She texted the senior partner, take care of that paralegal problem before Friday. That's textbook evidence of conspiracy. How did you get these? Let's just say I have a very talented investigator and Morrison's IT security is embarrassingly weak. None of this is admissible yet, but it tells me exactly what discovery will uncover. I stared at the messages. Vivian had written, make an example of her. I want every firm in the state to know what happens when someone crosses our family. Julia continued. We're also filing a complaint with the state bar. Trevor's lawyer, Brendan, committed malpractice by accidentally sending that prenup. Then, instead of acknowledging the error, he helped fabricate criminal allegations against you. That's serious ethical violations. They'll destroy me. They're going to try. That's why we move first and we move hard. She pulled out another document. This is a cease and desist letter. We're sending it today to Trevor, his mother, Brendan, and Morrison and Associates. It puts them on notice that we're documenting everything. Any further retaliation, any interference with your ability to find new employment, any defamatory statements, and we add it to the lawsuit. My hands were shaking again. What if I just walk away, find a new job in another city, start over? You could, but they'll follow you. Vivian Whitmore doesn't stop. She'll blacklist you everywhere she has connections, which from what I understand is most of the legal community in 3 states. You walk away now, you'll be running forever. I thought about Trevor's face when I'd told him my counteroffer stood. The shock that I'd dared to defy him. His mother's rage when I wouldn't back down. They expected me to crumble, to apologize, to beg for mercy. Let's do it. Let's sue them. Julia smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who loved watching bullies get what they deserved. Perfect. I'll have the complaint drafted by tomorrow. We'll file by end of week. In the meantime, document everything. Every call, every message, every interaction, and don't sign anything they send you. I left her office feeling something between terrified and exhilarated. This was really happening. I was suing my ex-fiancé and his powerful family. Trevor called that night. I heard you hired Julia Chen. Really? You're going to drag this into court? You got me fired? You threatened my career? What did you expect? I expected you to be reasonable. To understand that my family has standards. Standards? Your mother literally texted, make an example of her to my boss. Silence. You're bluffing. Ask Brendan about discovery. Ask him what happens when we subpoena all those communications about getting me fired. You're making a mistake. Funny. That's exactly what I thought when I said yes to your proposal. I hung up. My hands were still shaking, but this time it wasn't from fear. The next 48 hours were chaos. Julia filed the lawsuit. The local legal journal picked up the story. Paralegal sues prominent family over prenup retaliation. By morning, my phone was flooded with calls. Some were reporters. Others were lawyers from different firms offering support. 3 different attorneys who'd had bad experiences with the Whitmore family reached out to share their stories. Apparently, Vivian had a history of crushing anyone who challenged her. She'd tanked a female associate's career for refusing to falsify documents. She'd gotten a young lawyer fired for dating someone she didn't approve of. The woman had ended up leaving the legal profession entirely. But the most interesting call came from Trevor's ex-fiancée, a woman named Isabel. I saw your lawsuit in the news. I need to talk to you. We met at a coffee shop far from downtown. Isabel was elegant, composed, and clearly nervous. I was supposed to marry Trevor 5 years ago. His mother gave me a prenup identical to yours. When I tried to negotiate, they orchestrated a campaign to destroy my reputation. Vivian told everyone I was a gold digger who'd faked my credentials. Within a month, I'd lost my job at a PR firm. My apartment lease mysteriously wasn't renewed, and I found out I'd been blacklisted from the industry. I had to move to another state and change careers. My blood went cold. Why didn't you sue? I couldn't afford it. No lawyer would take the case because the Whitmores were too powerful. But you have Julia Chen. She's the only attorney in this city who isn't afraid of that family. Isabel slid a folder across the table. I kept everything. Emails, text messages, voice recordings, all the evidence of what they did to me. I want you to use it. I opened the folder. Inside were dozens of documents showing the systematic destruction of Isabel's life. Screenshots of Vivian sending emails to Isabel's employer claiming she'd stolen company funds. A recording of Trevor telling his mother, "Don't worry, we'll make sure no one ever hires her again." Bank records showing payments to a private investigator who'd followed Isabel for months. Why did you keep all this? Because I knew someday they'd do it to someone else. I've been waiting 5 years for someone to fight back. She leaned forward. Destroy them, please, for every woman they've crushed. I took the folder to Julia. Her eyes lit up as she reviewed the contents. This is gold. This establishes a pattern of behavior. We can amend the complaint to add civil conspiracy and racketeering. The Whitmores have been running an illegal operation to control and intimidate women. Racketeering? Like organized crime? Exactly like organized crime. They're using threats, intimidation, and economic harm to achieve their objectives. Pattern of behavior over years. Multiple victims. We might even be able to get federal charges involved. The amended complaint was filed that Friday. This time, the story made the front page of the city's legal section. Lawsuit alleges prominent family ran scheme to intimidate women. The article detailed both my case and Isabel's. Quotes from Julia about the pattern of abuse. A call for other victims to come forward. By Monday, 6 more women had contacted Julia's office. All ex-girlfriends or ex-fiancés of Trevor or his cousin. All had been subjected to similar campaigns of destruction when they wouldn't comply with Whitmore family demands. One woman had been forced out of medical school. Another had lost custody of her daughter because Vivian had fed false allegations to CPS. A third had declared bankruptcy after the Whitmores weaponized their business connections to destroy her startup. The lawsuit grew. What started as my wrongful termination case became a class action representing 8 women. The legal community was watching. Headlines appeared daily. Whitmore family accused of systemic abuse. Trevor stopped calling. His mother's society friends started distancing themselves. 2 board positions she held asked for her resignation pending the investigation. Then Morrison and Associates made their first mistake. They issued a press release denying all allegations and claiming I'd been terminated for legitimate cause. They included details about supposed performance issues and implied I'd been unstable and vengeful. Every word was defamatory. Julia filed a motion for sanctions within hours. The hearing was set for 10 days later. I arrived at the courthouse with Julia, terrified of facing Trevor and his family in person. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, lawyers who'd come to watch, a few of the other women from our class action. And there, sitting in the front row with their legal team of 6 attorneys, were Trevor, his mother, and the managing partners from Morrison. Vivian looked at me with pure hatred. Trevor wouldn't meet my eyes. The Morrison partners looked nervous, which Julia said was a very good sign. The judge entered. Honorable Margaret Reeves, known for being tough and fair. She'd reviewed our motion for sanctions. She looked at Morrison's legal team with an expression that could freeze fire. Counselors, I've reviewed the press release your clients issued. I'm deeply troubled by what appears to be witness intimidation and defamation in service of litigation strategy. Would anyone like to explain why I shouldn't sanction your firm immediately? Morrison's lead attorney stood. Your Honor, my clients were merely defending their reputation against false allegations. By making specific claims about Ms. Peterson's job performance and mental state, claims that I note are contradicted by 4 years of exemplary performance reviews, Judge Reeves held up a stack of documents. Reviews your client provided in discovery, showing consistent raises and praise for Ms. Peterson's work right up until the day she was terminated. The attorney paled. We weren't aware those reviews had been disclosed yet, Your Honor. Then perhaps your clients should have consulted you before issuing defamatory press releases. She turned to Julia. Ms. Chen, I'm granting your motion for sanctions. Morrison and Associates will pay $50,000 to Ms. Peterson for attorney fees. Additionally, I'm ordering them to issue a public retraction of their press release by end of business today. Failure to comply will result in additional sanctions and potential contempt charges. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Vivian stood up, her face red. This is outrageous. Our family has been pillars of this community for generations. Judge Reeves looked at her coldly. Mrs. Whitmore, sit down or I'll have you removed. Your family's social standing does not place you above the law. But Vivian wasn't done. That woman stole confidential documents. She manipulated my son. She's trying to extort us. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm warning you. We have rights. We shouldn't have to tolerate this harassment from some opportunistic. Bailiff, remove Mrs. Whitmore from my courtroom. 2 court officers approached. Vivian looked shocked, as if she couldn't believe this was happening. Trevor jumped up to intervene. Your Honor, please, she's just upset. Then she can be upset in the hallway. Remove her now. They escorted Vivian out, her voice echoing down the corridor about injustice and corruption. Trevor followed, shooting me a look of pure venom. Judge Reeves turned back to the remaining attorneys. Let me be clear. I've seen the evidence in this case. The text messages, the emails, the pattern of behavior. If even half of what's alleged is true, the Whitmores have engaged in appalling conduct. This court takes allegations of witness intimidation and retaliation very seriously. I suggest all parties begin settlement negotiations immediately because if this goes to trial, the discovery process is going to be extremely unpleasant for the defendants. The hearing ended. Julia was practically glowing. That was better than I hoped. A judge publicly calling out their behavior and ordering sanctions? That's gold for our case. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded us. Julia made a brief statement about standing up to powerful families who abuse their influence, about protecting women from retaliation, about justice finally being served. I said nothing, too overwhelmed to speak. That evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Ms. Peterson? This is Patricia Donnelly. I'm an attorney representing Trevor Whitmore and his family. My clients would like to discuss a settlement. Put everything in writing and send it to Julia Chen. With respect, Ms. Peterson, I think a direct conversation might be more productive. My clients are prepared to be quite generous. I'm sure they are. Send it to my attorney. I hung up. 20 minutes later, Julia called. They just sent over settlement terms. Want to hear this? How bad? They're offering $500,000 to you, $200,000 to each of the other women in the class action, full retractions and public apologies. Your job back at Morrison with a promotion and raise. All legal fees paid. My heart started racing. $500,000 was more money than I'd ever imagined having. What's the catch? Standard confidentiality agreement. You can't discuss the case, the settlement, or anything related to the Whitmore family ever again. Violation triggers return of the settlement plus penalties. They want to buy my silence. Exactly. They want this to go away quietly. I thought about Isabel, who'd been hiding for 5 years. About the woman who'd lost custody of her daughter. About all the victims who hadn't been able to fight back because they couldn't afford lawyers or were too scared to come forward. What do you think I should do? Julia was quiet for a moment. Financially? Take it. $500,000 is life-changing money. You could pay off debt, buy a house, start over somewhere new. Professionally? Taking the settlement means they win. They get to keep operating the same way. The next woman who stands up to them will be destroyed just like Isabel was. What about the other women? Do they want to settle? I haven't asked them yet. I wanted your input first since you're the named plaintiff. I stayed up all night thinking. By morning, I'd made my decision. I called Julia. I want to reject the settlement. Take this to trial. Are you sure? This kind of money doesn't come around twice. I'm sure. But I want to talk to the other women first. This is their decision too. We held a conference call that afternoon. All 8 women from the class action. I explained the settlement offer and my decision to reject it. There was silence. Then Isabel spoke. I vote we go to trial. I've been hiding long enough. It's time someone held them accountable. One by one, the other women agreed. Some cried, some sounded terrified, but they all voted to continue the fight. The woman who'd lost her daughter said, I want my kid to see that powerful people can't just destroy whoever they want. I want her to see me fight back. Julia sent the rejection to the Whitmore attorneys that evening. Their response came within an hour. A new settlement offer. $750,000 for me, $300,000 for each other plaintiff. Same confidentiality terms. Julia called. They're scared. They're offering nearly $3 million total to make this go away. Tell them no. You're turning down $750,000. I'm turning down being silenced. Tell them if they want this resolved, they can make a public statement acknowledging their actions, establish a fund for their victims, and agree to independent oversight of their business practices for 5 years. Julia laughed. They'll never go for that. Then we'll see them in court. The next offer came 2 days later. $1 million for me, $400,000 for each other woman. Nearly $4 million total. Trevor called me directly, his voice strained. Please, you've made your point. My mother's reputation is destroyed. I've been asked to step down from 3 boards. Our family business is losing contracts. Just take the money and let us move on. Let you move on? Like Isabel was allowed to move on? Like the woman who lost her daughter? That was different. How? Silence. You ruined people's lives because they wouldn't do what you wanted. Because your mother thought she owned them. You don't get to pay your way out of that. A jury could give you nothing. You could lose everything. Then I'll lose. But at least it'll be on record what your family did. He hung up. The offers stopped coming. Discovery began in earnest. Julia's team subpoenaed everything. Emails, text messages, phone records, financial documents. The Whitmore family lawyers fought every request, but Judge Reeves wasn't having it. She ordered them to comply or face contempt charges. What we found was worse than we'd imagined. The Whitmores had files on dozens of women Trevor and his cousins had dated. Background checks, financial records, private investigator reports. They'd compiled dossiers like some kind of intelligence operation. One file on Isabel was 200 pages long, documenting everywhere she'd gone for 6 months. We found evidence of bribes. $10,000 paid to a hiring manager to ensure a woman didn't get a job. $25,000 to a landlord to break a lease. $50,000 to a CPS worker, though we couldn't prove what that payment was for. The pattern was clear. When a woman didn't comply with Whitmore demands, they deployed their money and connections to systematically destroy her life. The local media covered every development. Whitmore family documents reveal systematic targeting of women. The story went regional, then national. Morning shows did segments on powerful families who weaponized their wealth. Vivian was dropped from every charity board she'd served on. Trevor's consulting firm lost 40% of its clients. Then 3 more women came forward. They'd seen the coverage and recognized the pattern. One had dated Trevor's cousin. When she'd broken up with him, she'd found herself suddenly audited by the IRS. Her business licenses mysteriously revoked, her permits denied. It took her 2 years to prove the audit was fraudulent, and by then her business had collapsed. Julia amended the complaint again. 11 plaintiffs now. The lawsuit had grown beyond anyone's expectations. The trial date was set for 6 months out. In the meantime, we prepared. Depositions, witnesses, expert testimony about the psychological harm of sustained harassment campaigns. Trevor's deposition was devastating. He couldn't explain why there were private investigator files on women he'd dated, couldn't justify the payments to various people in positions to harm his ex-girlfriends. His attorney kept trying to intervene, but Julia was relentless. Mr. Whitmore, you texted your mother. Don't worry, we'll make sure no one ever hires her again, referring to Isabel Walsh. What did you mean by that? I don't remember saying that. We have the text message, it's in evidence. I may have been upset. People say things when they're upset. And then your mother paid $10,000 to a hiring manager at Isabel's next prospective employer. Coincidence? I don't know anything about that. Your mother's bank records show the payment came from an account you both have access to. Trevor's face went red. His attorney called for a break. When they returned, Trevor's answers became vaguer, more evasive. He claimed not to remember conversations, not to have known about payments, not to have been involved in decisions. It was obvious he was lying. Vivian's deposition was even worse. She'd never been challenged like this in her life. When Julia pressed her about the dossiers, the payments, the coordination with business associates to harm the women, Vivian lost her composure. These women were trying to trap my son, trying to steal our family's wealth. I had every right to protect what's ours. By destroying their careers, their reputations, their lives, they should have thought of that before they crossed us. Julia let that answer hang in the air. Mrs. Whitmore, did you just admit to retaliating against these women? Vivian's attorney practically dove across the table. Do not answer that. We're taking a break. But the damage was done. It was on record. Vivian Whitmore admitting that she'd deliberately harmed women who crossed her family. That deposition video would be played for the jury. It would be in the public record forever. Morrison and Associates settled separately. They paid $800,000 divided among the plaintiffs and agreed to implement new policies around termination procedures and client conflicts. They also issued a formal apology acknowledging they'd been manipulated by the Whitmore family and shouldn't have terminated me without proper investigation. It wasn't everything, but it was something. 3 weeks before trial, Trevor reached out through a mutual friend. He wanted to meet, just the two of us, no attorneys. I agreed to meet him at a neutral location, a coffee shop where we'd had our first date 6 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. He looked terrible, thinner, dark circles under his eyes. His expensive suit seemed to hang on him. I've been talking to a therapist, started after the depositions. I said nothing. She's helping me understand how toxic my family dynamic is, how my mother's control issues warped my relationships, how I've been complicit in horrible things. He met my eyes for the first time. I'm sorry, truly sorry. Not because of the lawsuit, but because I genuinely didn't see how wrong it all was until now. You didn't see it? Trevor, you literally told your mother you'd make sure Isabel never worked again. I know, I've been reading the transcripts, seeing my own words. I can't believe that was me. His hands shook. My mother raised me to think we were different, that our money and name put us above normal rules, that people who challenged us deserved to be crushed. I never questioned it, not once, until now, until I was forced to, until I had to sit in that deposition and explain to a camera why I participated in destroying innocent people's lives. He pulled out a folder. I want to give you something. No strings attached, no settlement offer. Inside were bank statements. Accounts in Trevor's name showing all the payments his family had made to harm the women. Email chains between him and his mother, planning various retaliatory actions. Voice recordings of family meetings where they discussed which business contacts to leverage against which women. This is everything. All the evidence you'd have to fight for in discovery. I'm giving it to you voluntarily. I stared at the documents. This was enough to guarantee we'd win at trial. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. Because I'm tired of being who my mother raised me to be. Because maybe if I help destroy the system, I can start becoming someone better. He stood up. I've also filed a restraining order against my mother. She's not allowed to contact me anymore. I'm selling my share of the family business, and I'm moving to California, somewhere she doesn't have connections. Somewhere I can figure out who I am without her influence. What about the trial? I'll testify. For your side. I'll tell the jury everything. What we did, why we did it, how the whole operation worked. My attorney says I'm insane, but I don't care anymore. I need to fix this. He left before I could respond. I sat there staring at the folder, trying to process what had just happened. My ex-fiancé, who'd tried to trap me with a predatory prenup and then destroy my career, had just handed me the evidence to ruin his family and offered to testify against them. Julia nearly fell out of her chair when I showed her the documents. This is unprecedented. With Trevor's testimony and these records, the Whitmores don't have a defense. They'll have to settle or get obliterated at trial. Do you think he's genuine? About the remorse? Maybe. About testifying? We'll see. People say a lot of things before they actually have to sit in a witness stand and betray their family. She flipped through the bank statements. But these documents alone change everything. The Whitmores are going to panic. She was right. Within 24 hours, the Whitmore family lawyers requested an emergency meeting. They came with a new offer. $2 million for me, $750,000 for each other plaintiff. No confidentiality agreement. Public acknowledgement of wrongdoing, establishment of a $5 million fund for women affected by similar retaliation, and Vivian would step down from all her business roles and submit to a monitor for her charitable foundations. It was more than we'd demanded. It was complete capitulation. Julia laid out the terms for all the plaintiffs on another conference call. This is as good as it gets. They're admitting fault, paying substantial damages, and facing real consequences. I think we should take it. The vote was unanimous. We accepted the settlement. The announcement made national news. Prominent family pays $11 million in retaliation scandal. Articles detailed the pattern of abuse, the systematic destruction of women's lives, the culture of entitlement and control. Vivian Whitmore, once a celebrated philanthropist and society figure, became a cautionary tale about unchecked power. The money arrived in my account 2 weeks later. $2 million minus Julia's contingency fee and taxes. I still walked away with over $1.2 million. More money than my parents had earned in their entire working lives combined. I used part of it to start a nonprofit. We provide legal support and financial assistance to women facing retaliation for standing up to powerful employers, partners, or families. We've helped 34 women in the first year. Some were paralegals like me. Others were corporate employees who reported harassment. A few were daughters escaping controlling families. Every one of them got a lawyer, money for living expenses, and someone who believed their story. Isabel works with me. So does the woman who lost her daughter, who's regained full custody now that the false CPS allegations have been exposed and punished. We're building something good from all that ugliness. Trevor kept his word. He testified in 2 related cases that came out of our lawsuit, men from other wealthy families who'd used similar tactics. His testimony helped secure judgments against them. He moved to San Diego, and last I heard, he's working at a nonprofit that helps abuse victims. He sends me an email once a year on the anniversary of when this all started. Always just 3 words. Thank you. Sorry. I never respond. Some things don't need words. Vivian tried to stage a comeback after a year, started giving interviews about being unfairly targeted, about how the case had been blown out of proportion. The judge from our case, Judge Reeves, issued a public statement saying Vivian was violating the terms of the settlement by mischaracterizing the facts. Another $500,000 penalty. Vivian finally went quiet. I got hired at a different law firm 6 months after the settlement. They'd followed the case and specifically recruited me. I'm now a senior paralegal, and I've been accepted to law school starting next fall. My story gets used in legal ethics classes as an example of standing up to retaliation. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that email, the one Brendan sent by mistake. If he'd sent it to Trevor instead of me, I would have shown up to some pre-wedding meeting and been blindsided with 47 pages of legal control. Maybe I would have signed it out of shock or pressure. Maybe I would have married Trevor and spent years trapped in a family that saw me as property to be managed. One email error changed everything, changed my life, ended my engagement, cost me my job, and ultimately gave me the opportunity to break a system that had crushed so many women before me. I keep the original prenup in my desk drawer, both versions. Trevor's attempt to control me, and my edited version that started the war. Sometimes I pull them out and remember that moment in my kitchen, planning centerpieces when I decided to fight back instead of rolling over. Best decision I ever made. Last month, a young woman reached out through our nonprofit's website. She'd been given a prenup by her wealthy fiancé's family 3 days before her wedding. It included clauses about her inheritance, her career, her autonomy. She was terrified and didn't know what to do. I met her for coffee, told her my story, showed her both prenup versions, explained that she had options, that she didn't have to accept terms designed to control her, that there were people who would help her fight if she chose to. She left that coffee shop with Julia Chen's business card and a copy of my edited prenup as an example. 2 weeks later, she called. I sent back his prenup with changes. He's furious. His mother is threatening me, but I'm not backing down. Good, I said. Do you need a lawyer? Already called Julia. She's taking my case. I smiled. How do you feel? Terrified, but also free. For the first time since we got engaged, I feel like I have power. You do, and you're not alone. That's what it's really about. Not the money, though that helps. Not the satisfaction of watching Vivian's empire crumble, though that was admittedly sweet. It's about the women who see our story and realize they don't have to accept being controlled. They don't have to sign away their rights or their futures because someone with more power demands it. They can fight back, and sometimes they can win. I'm getting married next spring, to someone I met through a mutual friend at a charity event. Someone who was intrigued by my story and impressed by my fight. We're writing our own vows. No prenup, though we've both been advised to have one given my financial situation. We talk about money openly, about assets and plans and futures. Everything is transparent. Everything is equal. His mother loves me. She calls me brave. She tells people I'm the strongest person she's ever met. It's a refreshing change from Vivian's constant comparisons to Trevor's ex and barely concealed contempt. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I'd married Trevor. Brunch with Vivian every Sunday, walking on eggshells, making myself smaller to fit into their family's expectations, watching my inheritance disappear into a trust I couldn't control, eventually being discarded when I'd served my purpose or stepped out of line one too many times. I don't wonder often. That future died the moment Brendan hit send on the wrong email address. And I'm grateful every single day for that mistake. The wedding planning is going smoothly. No centerpiece drama this time, no secret documents lurking in inboxes. Just 2 people planning a celebration of a partnership built on honesty and respect. Trevor sent an email asking if he could attend. I didn't respond. Some chapters need to stay closed, but I did accept an invitation to speak at a legal conference about retaliation in the workplace. I stood on that stage and told my story to 300 attorneys, showed them the statistics on how often powerful families and employers target people who stand up to them, explained the legal tools available to fight back, gave them Julia Chen's contact information in case they needed a specialist. After my talk, a line formed. Lawyers wanting to discuss their own cases, law students asking for advice, women who'd faced similar situations sharing their stories. I stood there for 2 hours, taking notes, giving referrals, listening to people who'd been waiting years for someone to tell them they weren't crazy, that what happened to them was real and wrong and actionable. That's the thing about breaking the silence. Once one person speaks up, others find their voice too. The Whitmore case opened doors for dozens of other cases. Julia Chen's practice has tripled. She's hired 4 associate attorneys just to handle the retaliation cases that came in after our settlement. Other firms are developing similar specialties. The legal landscape is changing, slowly but noticeably. Vivian's friends don't call anymore. The society pages that once chronicled her charitable work now ignore her. Her children have all distanced themselves. Trevor's younger sister filed her own lawsuit alleging emotional abuse and financial control. That case settled quietly, but word got out. The Whitmore name, once synonymous with power and prestige, now carries a stench of corruption and cruelty. I don't feel vindicated exactly. More like settled. Like the universe rebalanced something that had been wrong for too long. Like justice, messy and imperfect as it was, actually happened. My parents were horrified when this all started. They'd been so proud I was marrying into money, so excited about the wedding at the country club, the connections, the social status. When I walked away, they thought I was insane. When I got fired, they begged me to apologize and fix it. When I filed the lawsuit, they stopped speaking to me for 3 months. Then the settlement came through. Then the media attention. Then my nonprofit launched. Suddenly I was brave instead of stupid. Suddenly I was a fighter instead of a troublemaker. Suddenly they told everyone about their amazing daughter who stood up to a corrupt family and won. I try not to be bitter about their change of heart. They were raised in a different generation with different values. Money and status meant everything to them. They genuinely couldn't understand why I turned down security and comfort for something as abstract as principle. But they understand now. They volunteer at my nonprofit once a week. Answer phones, stuff envelopes, whatever we need. My mother told me last month, "I'm sorry I didn't support you at first. I was scared for you. But you were right. Some things matter more than money." It's not a full apology. It doesn't erase those months of silence when I desperately needed their support. But it's something. It's growth, and I'll take it. The 11 women from the class action stay in touch. We have a group chat where we share victories and frustrations. One of them just passed the bar exam and specifically wants to practice family law. Another started a blog about financial independence and escape plans for women in controlling relationships. A third wrote a memoir about her experience that got picked up by a major publisher. We're all building new lives from the rubble of what the Whitmores destroyed, and we're all using our experiences to help other women avoid the same traps or escape when they fall in. That's the real victory. Not the money, or the headlines, or the satisfaction of watching powerful people face consequences. It's the ripple effect. Every woman we help, who then helps another woman, who then changes a policy, or starts a conversation, or refuses to accept unacceptable terms. Change happens slowly, and then all at once. The Whitmore case was a flashpoint, but the real change is happening in quieter moments. The paralegal who questions why she's being asked to falsify documents. The young woman who pushes back on an unfair prenup. The employee who reports harassment instead of staying silent. The attorney who takes on a powerful client's retaliation campaign instead of looking the other way. All of those moments trace back to someone deciding to fight instead of fold, to risk everything instead of accept less than they deserve. I think about that young woman I met last month, the one with the controlling prenup. She called yesterday to update me. She broke off her engagement. His family threatened to sue her for the cost of wedding deposits. Julia sent them a cease and desist letter so aggressive that they immediately backed down. Now she's applying to graduate schools and planning a life on her own terms. "I wanted to thank you," she said. "Your story made me realize I deserved better." "You always deserved better," I told her. "I just helped you see it. Will you come to my graduation next spring? I'd love for you to be there." I said yes, because that's what this is all about. Showing up for the women who come after us. Making sure they know they're not alone. Proving that fighting back is possible, and sometimes, against all odds, it actually works. Trevor was right about one thing. There are consequences to standing up to powerful people. You might lose your job, your reputation might take hits, your family might not understand, the stress might keep you up at night, the legal fees might drain your savings, but there are also consequences to staying silent, to accepting terms designed to diminish you, to letting powerful people control your life because you're too scared to fight back. Those consequences last longer and cut deeper than any temporary hardship from resistance. I learned that the hard way. In a kitchen, planning centerpieces, opening an email that changed everything. Making a choice in that moment to edit instead of accept. To fight instead of flee. To demand respect instead of beg for mercy. Would I do it again? Knowing all the stress and fear and uncertainty that followed? Knowing I'd lose my job and my fiancé and months of peace? Knowing I'd have to face down lawyers and depositions and public scrutiny? Yes. Absolutely yes. 1,000 times yes. Because I'm free. Free from a man who saw me as property. Free from a family that would have crushed me eventually. Free from a future of walking on eggshells and making myself smaller. Free to build a life based on my values instead of someone else's control. And that freedom? That's worth everything. The sun is setting outside my office window. I can see the city lights starting to glow. In an hour, I'm meeting my fiancé for dinner. We're going to talk about honeymoon destinations and guest lists and whether we want a band or a DJ. Normal wedding things. No hidden documents, no power plays, no threats. Just two people planning a future together. As equals. As partners. As people who chose each other freely and honestly. That's all I ever wanted. It just took a mistaken email and a war with one of the city's most powerful families to get it. But I'm here now. And I'm finally, genuinely happy. My phone buzzes. Another email from our nonprofit. Another woman reaching out for help. Another story of retaliation and control. Another opportunity to fight back. I saved the email to respond to tomorrow. Tonight is for celebrating, for remembering how far I've come, for being grateful that Brendan Mitchell, whoever he is, had terrible email organization and changed my life by accident. I close my laptop and head out the door. The future is waiting, and for the first time in years, I'm excited to see what it holds.